بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وأسوتنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Alhamdulillah. So alhamdulillah, we are continuing our reading of this small primer called The Ladder of Success in Truly Loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sulum al-Tawfiq ila mahabbatillahi ala al-tahqiq. And we said that this was a primer meant for any Muslim to learn the basics of the religion in theology, aqidah, fiqh, and tazkiyah, or purification of the heart. So alhamdulillah, we left off last week, we began the section related to matters of fiqh, particularly related to the prayers and purification. And the week before that we talked about the timings of the prayers. And then we got into things related to ablution, wudu, and purification. And I think I should have maybe gave us a bit more prerequisite or a bit more introduction into the methodology of the author. We talked about this in previous discussions, but I think it was worth mentioning again last class, and I didn't. That the author here is not trying to give us very, very detailed information about these issues. He's trying to give us the very, very basic things that you have to know to do something properly. So with that being said, you can know how to do something even if you don't know that this particular rule is based on a verse of the Quran, or this particular rule is based on a hadith. You can still learn it and do it properly without knowing even the proof. So this sort of text was meant for, in many cases, beginner students or very young students, maybe as young as 6 or 8 or 10 years old. They would start to learn these very, very basic texts. And they would memorize, for example, that the conditions of wudu are this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they would just, this intention, washing the face, washing the arms up to the elbow, wiping over the head, and washing the feet, and doing that and doing it in that order. That's wudu. That's all you have for your wudu to be proper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they would learn it like that, and then they would go at a later stage with a different text, not the same book. They would go with a different text and go over the same material again in deeper detail, more details, more proofs, more evidences. Why is the scholars, why are they saying this or that? The other thing that we didn't mention last week, which we should have, because there were a lot of questions about different things related to like socks and leather socks and things we got off on, which is beneficial, but this book is being written from the perspective of what they call school of thought, from a madhab, which was founded by and named after Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam al-Shafi'i lived in the 3rd century, 3rd century, rahmatullah alayh. He was born in Giza, rahmatullah, not in Giza, excuse me, Gaza, subhanallah. He was born in Gaza, but he was Qurayshi. So after being born in Palestine, he moved back to Mecca as a child. He didn't move, his family moved back to Mecca as a child. He lived in Mecca, he took from the ulama of Mecca, he memorized the Muwatta of Imam Malik, which was the hadith collection, and Imam Malik's opinions on different fiqh issues. He later moved to Medina, and he spent 20 years with Imam Malik, learning for his school, his opinions, his scholarship. Then he went to Yemen for a period, he went to Iraq for a period, he went to Egypt for a period, and he was able, with Allah's permission, to benefit from the different scholarship at the time. So Abu Hanifa had been in Iraq with his students. He was able to go to Iraq eventually and meet the students of Abu Hanifa, and they discussed matters, different issues, and he benefited from their perspective. Long story short, Imam Shafi'i eventually, due to his the number of students who studied with him and preserved his opinions and his methodologies, what survived from him was what came to be known as a school of thought, a madhab, which wasn't just one person's opinion, but it was the opinion of this one person and his thought processes, his methodology, how he understood certain issues related to what we take from the Quran and what we take from the Sunnah, and how we deal with these texts and how we apply these texts. And then the scholarship from that followed down to the point that we had not 5 or 10 or 20 students, we had thousands of people who were scholars in this school, teaching a system, if you will. So it's, now we have like coding language, people that work in IT and work in computers, there's all these different coding languages. If you will, madhabs, you can look at them as a language, a way to look and speak about this information, right? So what we didn't mention last week is that the scholar here, he's reading and telling us about these things from the perspective of this one particular school. So for some of us who've never studied it from one school alone, and we're used to maybe hearing 3 or 4 or 5 different opinions at the same time, it's hard for us to just limit ourselves to what is the author saying. What is the school saying? The Shafi'i school is saying 1, 2, 3, alif, ba, ta. That's what the Shafi'i school says. The Hanafis might have a different opinion, this scholar might have a different opinion, but the school is saying this, and these are the reasons. For a lot of us, we're not used to doing that. Nor are we used to saying, okay, this is all I have to know, I'm going to limit myself to this for now, and then build up later. We're also not used to that. So I think we have to just remind ourselves where the author is coming from, what he's trying to give us, and what he's not trying to give us. So he's not going to tell you all the other opinions in other schools. He's not even going to mention the proofs in every single issue. He's going to give you the basic things, bullet points, if you will, as a base to start with. You learn the bullet points. So if I ask you, what are the conditions for a proper wudu? So we read this last week. What were the conditions for a proper wudu in the Shafi'i school? First thing, intention. Second thing, which has to be combined with the first thing, is washing the face. The intention has to be done while washing the face in the Shafi'i madhab. The intention, other schools are more flexible. So in the other schools, you could be sitting on the couch and you get up and you go to the bathroom and you make wudu, and if I ask you why are you getting up? You say, I'm going to go make wudu. That's your intention. That's enough of an intention that you got up to go to the bathroom for that purpose. In the Shafi'i school, that's not enough of an intention. Is accompanied by the action. The intention of an action accompanies the action at the same time, at least at the beginning of it. If not through the whole process, at least at the beginning of it. So in the Shafi'i madhab, you have to have the intention while you're washing the face. Second thing, I guess that's 2 things. The third thing, washing the hands up to and including the elbows. Fourth thing, wiping over even some of the head and even a few strands of hair. Was that 4? Fifth thing, washing the feet up to the ankle bone, up to and including the ankle bones. And the last thing, the order of the sequence. So that sequence has to be done. You can't mix up the sequence.
If you mix it by mistake.
You can't. No, you have to. At least you go back to.
From the beginning.
You don't have to do it from the beginning. But let's say you wash your face. You had your intention. You wash your face. Then you wiped your head. I don't know. Then you wash your arms. You would have to go back to the right sequence. Where did you leave off incorrectly? You can go back and do it. Wallahu a'lam.
Matter how many times, 2, 3, 1.
One's enough. 3 soon. So this is the other thing which we haven't got into yet. We're talking about minimum necessities. The minimum necessities. So 1 washing is enough if you wash properly. That for example, the whole limb has been washed. 1 is enough. But 3 is sunnah. Many things. So the scholars and most of the schools of thought, they've divided between what's an essential obligation to do and what's a sunnah to do. Right? So sunnah. So for example, everyone agrees that the Prophet ﷺ, when he made wudu, he would wash his hands, he would wash his mouth and his nose, then he would wash his face. Okay? Everyone, this is established, right? That he did this. The Shafi'i say all of those things are sunnah. All of those things are sunnah. The first obligation is what's mentioned in the book of Allah, to wash the face. That's the first obligation. Everything else before that is sunnah. Because they say that, something interesting happens. And I learned that when I first became Muslim, someone gave me like a prayer book to learn how to pray and learn how to make wudu. It was I think Hanafi school. So they said, wash your hands, wash your mouth, wash your nose, wash your face. Then they would say your wrist up to the elbow. Why did they say the wrist? Because you already washed your hands. You already washed your hands, so just complete it, do the rest. So in the Hanafi school, that's okay. In the Shafi'i school, it's not okay. Why? Because you now messed up the sequence. You haven't washed your complete hand up to the elbow in sequence. You washed part of it first, then you did the face, and then you came back and you did the rest. So the sequence, so some things like that, sometimes we'll find scholars will get a bit, they say, no, this is our system. We have a reason why we're saying sequence is important. The other school is saying, no, it's okay to do that. Obviously, as a Muslim, I would not say, oh, okay, your wudu is wrong, you have to redo your wudu. But if you're asking me in the Shafi school, is that proper? No, it's not proper, right? And there's a lot of things like that in both schools, and in the Maliki school and this school, you'll find these sort of differences of opinion, right? But so those are the mandatory things. So the next thing we mentioned after that is things which invalidate wudu. The things which invalidate wudu. So there are 4 key things. Anything which exits the 2 openings of the human being, right? Male or female, whether liquid or solid. Anything that exits your body, urine or stool. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word. There are other liquids, particularly for men and for women as well, that exit the private parts. Okay, those would require wudu, amongst other things. But if you use the bathroom, for example, khalas, your wudu needs to be renewed. Okay, and he'll get into other things. For example, izalat al-najasa. He'll get into that into another section. The idea of, okay, if you use the restroom, now you have filth on your body. You have to remove that filth. But removing that filth is different from wudu. The action of wudu is different than the actual, what they call izalat al-najasa, removing the filth. Those are actually 2 technically different things. And this comes up on, for example, someone's at work and they're in a situation where they don't have lota, you know lota, right? They don't have a bottle to wash themselves. So they wind up getting, they use the restroom and they didn't have anything to clean themselves properly, and they have urine on their body or on their clothes, as an example. The person can make wudu. They can make wudu, but they can't pray. And they have wudu, but there's najasa on the skin. The skin has to be washed, or the clothes. If it's on the clothes have to be changed. But the person is still technically in a state of wudu. Then they're not the same thing. This is one thing, and this is another thing. So you'll find the scholars talking about different things in different categories. Okay, I'm just trying to give us a bit of a foundation why we're saying that, right? So they mentioned, for example, for a man or for a woman, what they call ejaculant. You know, what comes out of a man after intercourse or during a wet dream, right? Semen or sperm. I mean, there's different ways of saying it. That does not. It's an interesting. Again, it almost sounds like like they're saying something and they're not. But what the scholars say is that you don't lose your wudu. You don't lose your wudu if that happens, but you have to shower.
But you lose your shower.
You lose your shower, yes. You lose your. So they differentiate between that.
Shower is the top one. So if you lose your shower, you lose your wudu too.
No, you don't. No.
Can he make wudu and pray?
No, not pray. No.
No. Like, hadath al-akbar.
No. Make wudu and pray?
Yeah.
No.
The shower is
No,
so
shower.
you need to take
Shower or tayammum. Shower or tayammum. If there's no water, tayammum. Okay. But they differentiate this particular point. For example, they said in some of the commentaries on this book, وخروج المني وإن كان لا ينقض الوضوء ولكنه يوجب الغسل أو الغسل فلا تصح صلاة من خرج منيه حتى يغتسل. So it doesn't break your wudu, but you have to shower, and you can't pray until you shower.
Because it's not najas.
Bizarre.
It's not najas.
It's not considered an impurity.
What if you cannot shower? There is no way you can shower. There is situation.
Allah Ma'ak. So that's the other thing. If we're talking from the Shafi'i school, so the Shafi'i school is very interesting. One of the thought processes of the Shafi'i school related to prayers, in particular prayers and prayer timing, is that there shouldn't really be ever a reason that you miss the prayer. So let's say you were even at work. You know, imagine someone's at work, they take a nap at work on their lunch break, and they wake up and they realize they need to shower. And it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, it's Asr time. And there's no shower at work, and what are they gonna do? They're gonna take a bucket into their office, and right? So in the Shafi'i school, there's no reason to miss the prayer. You pray as best you can. So you make wudu, you clean yourself, you make tayammum, right? You pray as best you can in that situation. Then you make it up again when you can pray properly. Same thing with the planes. In the Shafi'i madhab, related to praying on planes or praying in seat on a plane. If you're on a plane or the plane's moving and it's changing clip, whatever, you pray as best you can but then when you land, you pray again. Because in the Shafi'i school, one of the ideas is that the human being should be on the earth. We pray on the earth. We don't pray floating in the universe. I mean, even on a boat.
You have to do the prayer again.
In the Shafi'i school, yeah.
In the Shafi'i.
But
Yeah.
that time probably there wasn't any airplane, right?
No, but even on boats, they would say
So
that.
or he has no idea about what is air means. Probably Imam Shafi has no idea what is airplane means.
الشافعي فيها رأيان.
Rahmatullah alayhi.
No, so
Yeah. Allah Alam, this is my understanding from what I learned from my teacher. If you're on a plane and you have to pray on the plane, so you should make up the prayer again.
When I took a class with Sheikh Walid Bisri about this one, yes, only you can pray in your airplane, only, no train, no bus, no car, period. Because you have a choice, then you can stop somewhere or you go to the destination
What
and
is
pray.
it? Wouldn't hear what is it?
As Sheikh said, plane, that means Salah is a standing position, but you are sitting and praying while you are traveling on the airplane.
When you fly in airplane.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. But I took the class Fiqh of Salah, and then why I was told that only you can pray on airplane. That acceptable.
Only you can very well.
You can pray on airplane when you move. Unless you are going to Cairo, you have to pray 3-4 a waqt of Salah in your plane.
Yeah.
That acceptable only because plane moves region to region. There is no way you can stop, and you have to pray on time. That's what the idea. You have to pray on time, right? So there is, as Shaykh said, there is no way you can delay your Salah, even you travel.
No, but I mean, this Sheikh Walid is coming from a different perspective. So the Shafi'i school at this point, they're talking about being literally in space, flying in the air. I mean, you can imagine any other instrument, right? If I told you have like a parasail or some sort of glider and you're gliding in the air and you're praying, the idea is you should be praying on the earth. That the ard has been made, the musalla for the Muslim is the ard. Allahu Alam. I mean, that's
What's the other three?
Allahu Alam. Okay. So anyways, let's get back to this so we can wrap up. So there are 4 things that's mentioned. Anything that exits the body requires wudu from the private parts. Touching a human being's genitals, including the scrotum or the anus, with the palm of the hand without a barrier, including yourself. So in the Shafi'i school, yourself would be included in that. The back of the hand, that would be okay. So if you get out of the shower and you graze your body with the back of your hand, it's not a problem. The palm of the hand would be a problem. Okay. A man touching the skin of an unrelated female, even his wife, who has near or passed the stage of adolescence, or the opposite. So a mature a person of the opposite gender who is not your mahram. So that includes your wife. Your wife, I mean, a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, it's my wife. But she is not your mahram. Your mahram is your wife, your mother, your sister, your daughter, your grandmother, your aunt, etc. Right? So there was a scholar, Egyptian scholar, who mentioned, he wrote, Sheikh al-Qaradawi, rahmatullah alayhi, he wrote memoirs. We'll stop with this inshallah. We'll continue next week. He wrote memoirs of his life, and he lived to almost, I think, 90-something years old. So he wrote 4 large volumes about his life. And he mentioned when he was growing up in his village in Egypt, the village, was culturally, it grew up as a Shafi'i village. And the people there had been learning and practicing, they're living their Islam on the Shafi'i madhab for 1,000 years. Really, and this issue in particular of touching, if you touch your spouse or your spouse touches you, you lose your wudu. This can be somewhat burdensome, particularly in the winter time. In that time, he was talking about maybe in the 30s or in the 40s, they didn't have hot water heaters and that sort of thing. So in the winter time, the times are short, you try to hold on to your wudu. So just, you don't have to make wudu and make yourself cold and, cold water in winter time in the wood, it's difficult, right? So you keep one wudu for dhuhr, asr, you try to keep it. And so he said a lot of families would fight and husbands would divorce their wives because the wife would hand him the dish at dinner time and touch his hand or something like that. And he would be mad that he has to redo his wudu and
When
do.
you holding your wife's hand breaks wudu?
Yes.
في المذهب الشافعي.
Yeah, for madhab. Okay. So Sheikh Yusuf, when he went to Al-Azhar, when he went into Al-Azhar, Al-Azhar asked you, what madhab do you want to study? So he grew up as a Shafi'i in his village, but the man who was registering him was doing his paperwork. He said, why don't you be Hanafi like me? I'm a Hanafi. So he said, yeah, okay, let's be Hanafi. So he studied the Hanafi madhab. So then when he went back to the village, he said, no, you can take from Abu Hanifa's opinion. It's easier and less burdensome, and it's valid. It's recognized as a proper practice of Islam. No one would say it's a wrong madhab. It's a wrong school of thought. It's okay to take that opinion when you're in hardship. So this is the thing about the madhabs. Almost all the madhabs would say if you're Hanafi, be a Hanafi. But if there's extreme hardship, you can take one from the other schools. In a particular issue, so the Shafi madhab is very difficult. I'm going to take in these issues from the Hanafi madhab or from the.
So what the Sunnah says. Forget of the madhab, what the Sunnah is.
Listen, all the madhabs were reading the Sunnah. So there's no Abu Hanifa and Sunnah. No. It's Abu Hanifa's understanding of the Sunnah, or Malik's understanding of the Sunnah, or Shafi's understanding of the Sunnah. It's not Shafi versus the Sunnah. Never. Okay.
All the mazahib in the Sunnah.
Alhamdulillah.
So then why they are different then?
Yeah, this
It's
is.
different for us.
And
Alhamdulillah.
how they come out with different opinion.
So this is what I hope one day.
According to my wife's, if my oath is break, that is something,
So many, yeah. I mean,
debatable.
I'm not saying this is the strongest opinion or this is. I'm not selling. Also, listen, I'm not selling the Shafi madhab that you have to become a Shafi, but I'm reading this to show us how Muslims. This system, and you have these sort of books in all the madhabs. This was how Islam was taught to beginners for the last 1,000 years. In a very basic text, you learn the basics, and from one system, one school, one way of thinking. Why did Imam Shafi have this opinion? What was his perspective? What was his proof? What was the all these things? Then you branch out and you learn the other schools, right? So I'm not selling one madhab, but I'm saying let's read one madhab and let's learn from it, and then you can take it for what it is. So many scholars would say there's ample indications. I don't want to say proofs, but indications in the Sunnah that wasn't necessarily the understanding of all the companions. But to be fair to Imam Shafi'i, this was Ibn Abbas's opinion. Ibn Abbas, this was his opinion about touching your wife. That was his opinion, radiallahu anhu. And he wasn't nobody. He was Ibn Abbas, right? Even amongst the Sahaba, he wasn't just an average Sahabi. He was a scholar of scholars, right?
Big sanad, the big sanad.
Yeah. So, and there's proofs for that. It's how do you interpret the proofs? The Quran mentions related to washing and related to touching women. The Quran mentions these words. If you've come from the restroom or you've come from لامستم النساء لا أتذكر الآية.
الآية
Yeah.
إذا لمستم النساء. الآية.
I think that's the ayah. يعني yeah. I wish Sheikh Samir was here with us too. But the point is that the Quran mentions this expression, touching women. Some of the companions understood that to mean
Well, women versus the wife is different.
لا لا your wife's a woman, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Hold on, because we're going over time. So let me finish, and then we'll. So Shaykh Qaradawi, anyways, so he told this to his village. It's okay if you want to take in this hardship, extreme hardship, and also more importantly, in his perspective, to protect families. Like literally, husbands are fighting with their wives because of stuff like this. And you touched me, and I have to go make wudu again. It's freezing cold, and so he said, take from the Hanafi. So then everyone was so happy. They said, "Oh, Sheikh Yusuf, let's take from the madhab of Sheikh Yusuf." He said, "No, it's not my madhab. It's the Hanif Abu Hanifa's madhab. It's not Sheikh Yusuf." And he was a kid at that time. He was maybe 12 or 14 at the time, and he was, in his village. He was known for his intellect and his knowledge and everything. So when he came back from summer vacation, and when he would come back to the village, they were like, Sheikh Yusuf. Anyways, he mentions this as an example. And I'll give you another really practical example. When Shafi'is, almost without exclusion, when they make Hajj, they say, Ya Allah, on the madhab of Imam Malik. Ya Allah, they make the intention, Ya Allah, I'm doing the Hajj on the madhab of Imam Malik. Why? Because he doesn't have the same, or Abu Hanif, for example. They don't have this, because if you're doing the tawaf, and you did, yeah. One of the opinions in the madhab, from my understanding, from my recollection, was that they saw the one who touched as the one who lost their wudu, but if they touched you, you didn't lose your wudu. But the school itself, the official position of the school, the official position is both. Whether intentional, accidental, and if you touch your what. So there can be a difficult. Like I said, it's not the only opinion, and I'm not selling one school over another school. I'm just trying to give you the mindset of the school, where they're coming from. And we're not going to do that really in depth from this text, and that's not the objective. Again, the objective here is to take basic bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4. As adults, we're mature, we can talk about the reasons and the mindset and everything, but that's not the objective of this author. This author is trying to give the student, the very beginner student, very, very basic things. If this happens to me, I use the restroom, I have to make wudu. If this thing happens to me, I have to do this and this, right? Even if there's differences of opinion, and there's a lot of differences of opinion about a lot of things, right? So the last two things he mentions, or the last thing he mentions in this regard, is loss of consciousness. So someone who passes out or enters into deep sleep, except he mentions the sleep of someone who is seated in an upright position on their buttocks, right? So the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to wait until Isha, and you understand at that time there's no electricity, there's no lights, and sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would delay Isha time a little bit. And they would be almost napping. They would be falling asleep in the masjid, and they wouldn't renew their wudu. They were in the seated position, right?
So especially in Friday Juma prayers,
Yeah.
a lot of people fall asleep.
I hope not. As someone who gives khutbah on Fridays, I hope that's not the case. But you're right. Yeah, I see a few people. Yeah,
But he's sitting.
they're sitting. Yeah,
I think
they're sitting in an upright
Up-
position.
like up.
And it's not my place to be like, we do the iqamah, okay, straighten your rows, you go make wudu, refresh your wudu, I saw you sleeping, I can't tell them that. So those are the 4 things that we mentioned, and as we said, in later sections he discusses more details, particularly about the actual act of purifying yourself after using the restroom, for example, and then what's necessary for bathing, what's necessary for other things related to this. So he has maybe 5 or 6 sections, even what people are forbidden to do when they've lost their wudu, and what they're forbidden to do when they need to take a ghusl. So you're not allowed to do tawaf, for example. You're obviously not allowed to pray, for example. Yeah. So other things like that. So he'll get into those things as well, which are important, inshallah. So we ask Allah to accept from us and from you, and forgive our shortcomings, and give us understanding and application of the Deen. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين، واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير.